Disclaimer: I am not a professional writer, nor do I claim to be one. This video was purely made for fun and a test of my skills as both a writer and an artist. I do enjoy Arcane Season 2, although I do acknowledge its flaws. Season 2 of Arcane was a mixed bag of quality. The plot felt rushed, the characters did decisions that fell out of character, and most importantly, some creative decisions were made that maybe were not the best. One thing a lot of people disliked was Viktor. Not Viktor as a character. In fact, I believe everyone agrees that Viktor is better than his old shallowed version. You see, Viktor was already a character before Arcane. Most of the main characters were, actually. As such, there was already a hype for when he would finally gloriously evolve and fully become his in-game version. Arcane, however, had a few different ideas. The writers of the show wanted something a bit more original than the mad scientist that wants to turn people into robots trope, so they focused on the magic part of his character. As many people here on YouTube have discussed already, the issue with that is that Viktor's gimmick was the mad scientist trope. Without it, Viktor became just another wizard magic creature that just happens to be made of metal. Today, I would like to analyze Viktor a little bit because I actually have concerns with the character that stretch all the way over to Season 1, as well as give him a redesign worthy of the Machine Herald. For sake of the challenge, I will give myself a few rules for this reimagining of Viktor. I will keep traits from the original Viktor design, and my rewrite will be limited by the same amount of episodes as the actual show. Some changes in the show will have to be made for the sake of coherence, time saving, and overall because I believe these to be good changes. Viktor is no longer the wizard that saved Jace. The amount of issues this part of the story creates just for a cheap twist is bizarre. It only adds more questions, it doesn't answer any of them. Now that wizard is Rice, the way it was probably already meant to be before the changes in writers. Second thing, only Jace is sent to the future. Echo and Heimer will stay behind. I cannot go into depth into this since I do not have the time for it. Maybe if this video goes well I can make more like it. Third thing, although Echo is not sent to the perfect future, he does create the time machine. Starting with the design, I want to keep a few things set in stone. First is a rule Arcane did not follow. I want Viktor's mask to remain intact. It is recognizable, it is iconic, and very fitting for a villain like Viktor. Second, Viktor will keep the staff. That is a core part of his character design, although I will change it so that it looks more mechanical, unlike the Foley Arcane staff that he has on the show. Third, the third arm needs to remain, and this time I want to make it make sense for Viktor to have it. Now, I'm going to make some changes to the story to fit those design changes and to also explain why Viktor becomes that fully machine self that we know. Honestly, personality-wise, I don't need to change a lot. I do have issues with Viktor in Season 1. I will give you one example so you can see what I mean. In Season 1, Episode 4, we see a prototype of what will eventually become Viktor's mechanical arm. It fires a laser guided by Viktor's glove. It looks enough like the one in game, and although a bit too large, it is a good foreshadowing of what Viktor would have in his final form. This cool mechanical arm, who is clearly going to become one of the three main aspects of Viktor's design, is forgotten about for the rest of the whole show, lazily being added to his final form at the last minute. As a viewer, you even forget that was a thing introduced earlier. If you did not know who Viktor was from the game, you probably were surprised by him having the third arm. My point is, Viktor is an inventor, yet we barely see him create anything besides Hextech. He should be tinkering with machinery all the time, even if it's not related to Hextech, and very obviously, he should already be looking into augmenting his body. He already has a prosthetic on his leg, but it's barely given focus at all. Perhaps at some point he is having trouble using his hands, and to make up for it, he creates a third arm based on his previous invention. There, solved, Viktor now has his iconic third arm with a proper reason for him to have it. All of these inventions, however, cannot help him with his main issue. Viktor is dying. Then the Hexed Core can come in, as a way to change the body's nature so that he can live, a solution pure machinery cannot provide. Then comes the staff. Viktor already uses a cane. What if in the scene where Sky tries to help Viktor and she dies, she attempted to hit the core with his cane? She dies, just like in the original, and now the cane is fused to the core, floating ominously in the center of the room like a staff, ready to be picked up. Story-wise, this would even be representative of how dependent on the core he is, needing it just so that he can stand, exactly like the cane. Adding to that scene, since Viktor has his robotic arm now, the transformation could have fused the arm with his flesh. Now he can't even take the arm off anymore. Maybe Jace even throws a comment to it when they are both talking. Finally, the mask. After Jinx explodes the council room, Jace sees Viktor on the floor and he notices the machine enhancements fused with his body. He rushes to the lab, brings Viktor to the staff, and as soon as he touches his hand, it transforms him. Viktor decides it's time for them to part ways, and he leaves. He goes to Zaun and begins to augment people with machinery, and now they no longer look like they have the metal skin and veins that they used to have in Arcane. Now they have actual robotic parts replacing their limbs. The Wild Rune throws Jace into the future. He sees a world devastated by Viktor's machines, and even gets a glimpse of the new Viktor before being sent back by Rise. Jace goes after Viktor and shoots him with his hammer. The projectile damages his face, arm, and both legs. Singed then uses Warwick's blood to revive Viktor, and Viktor builds himself a new body with the help of his machines. Through the story, Viktor is constantly robbed of choice. As a child, he has no choice but to play by himself due to not being able to socialize with the other kids. This then causes him to get closer to Singed, who he then leaves, having no other choice since he saw what he was doing to Rio. He then has no choice but to help Jace with Hextech because he knows Heimerdinger will never allow him to experiment with it. He has no choice but to experiment with the Hexcore when his disease brings him closer to death, and he has no choice when Jace fuses him with the Hexcore. Through the story, Viktor is robbed of choice again and again, and he eventually will become tired of it. Heimerdinger is too fearful to take risks. Jace is too emotional to think logically. The people of Zaun hate Piltover, and Piltover hates Zaun. Sky died because she loved Viktor, a love he couldn't even correspond. Point is, to Viktor, emotions cause damage. This brings him to believe only a logical worldview can change things for the better, and so he already begins to think more like a machine. Sacrifice is a core theme of Arcane. With Singed, Viktor learned that he needs to sacrifice everything to get what he wants. He left Singed early and then joined Heimerdinger, but Singed clearly imprinted onto him that idea. Viktor needs to sacrifice it all. His emotions, his friends, he needs to sacrifice Jace. He needs it to do what's right, even if that means stripping away all choice from the world. I do like the idea of Singed and Viktor having a bit of a bond, and after Viktor is revived by Singed and he makes his new body, they both are able to talk in front of Singed's lab. They share a few words, and Viktor says he has one final gift to his mentor as a last act of sentimentality before he frees himself from it. As Viktor leaves and Singed enters his lab, he sees a mechanical girl standing on the doorframe. The scene then shifts to Viktor welding his mask onto himself, forever sealing his humanity inside the machine exterior. And now for the end of the story. Things will remain basically the same, although this time we would focus less on Vi and Jinx fighting Ugly Warwick and more on Viktor and Jace fighting. This is where Viktor's design would be shown in full, and the fight would be much more even than the one we got in Arcane, and Jace would even get some very good hits on Viktor before Echo needs to get in and help. This time, Viktor is defeated, but he still lives. Jace realizes his friend is gone, and Viktor chooses to keep fighting. Although I do enjoy the idea of Jace sparing Viktor at the end and then Viktor having to leave, I do think that that also causes a lot of problems and it may not be as satisfying as the alternative, so I do think that Jace would kill Viktor in this final fight. Hi there. I'm coming here in the end of the video. I just wanted to give a few final notes. I don't even have my script this time. I would like to say that I do really like the design for Viktor in the show. In fact, I do recognize that the old design kinda had to go. As much as I like old Viktor, the new one does have a much better design, and the character has a lot more depth than the original, that is undisputable. Although I wish they had kept the mask design, I do really like the new Viktor, and he looks very creepy looking. As I mentioned in the video, I am an Arcane fan. I really enjoy Season 2 despite its multitude of flaws. I think that the new Viktor is very interesting for what he needs to be. It is unfortunate, however, that he kind of gets lost in the League roster outside of Arcane. He does get a little bit generic. I'm pretty sure that you could point to 5 other characters and they would already fulfill Viktor's role, maybe even better than he does in Arcane. It also bothered me a little bit that we don't really get to see a lot of his final form, and that is a wasted opportunity, I guess. As I said in the video also, this reimagining of Viktor, I did imagine some other things, since you can rewrite all that and still have the same amount of time without cutting out some things. And I did want to make more space for those things. I'm not doing this today though, since it probably need me some time to think over, and I've already been stalling to make this video. I still want to make a few other videos kinda like this one, maybe thinking of some other designs, reimagining some other things. I did want to touch upon Caitlyn, for example. I do think that Caitlyn was not as well utilized as she could have been. However, that does depend on how well this video goes, I guess, and how many of you want to hear me talk about fake, not real, Arcane hypotheticals, I guess. I had a lot of fun doing this. I really enjoyed making the redesign for Viktor. I would like to thank you for watching. I have a webcomic. It's a Blood Venator. It's probably in the description. The 3rd chapter will come out very soon, probably, if I don't waste a lot of time with it. Like, subscribe, thank you, goodbye.